Hello, everybody, and welcome to Electric City Sentai Denzicaster, your weekly walk through the wonderful world of Tokusatsu here on Geek Carolina. I'm your host, Mike, and you have never seen this guy sitting beside me before, although there are some of our staff members that are going to be going, how the hell did he show up? This is Damon Waylin. We don't have enough money for that. This is Damon Waylin. If you are a long-time listener, and I do mean listener, of the shows associated with Geek Carolina, Damon here is actually one of the founding fathers of Geek Carolina, whether he wants to claim that or not.
Hey, I even sponsored you guys for a while.
Yes, you did. He was the original producer of Rage Quit Radio, and was one of our sponsors in the early podcast days. So it is a lot of fun to have him here with us because he's no longer in South Carolina. So a lot of fun to have Damon show up. Before we jump into what we're talking about, let everybody know what you do online, because you do more than I knew you did online now.
Yeah, recently, November last year, I started doing online streaming. I'm now a streamer. You can find me on Twitch TV at twitch.tv/Damon Waylin. Search for Damon Waylin on YouTube. I have some of my old streams from there. And I'm going to be soon, hopefully, getting into a online role-playing game with a group using Roll20. So I stream 3 to 4 times a week, play Ark, play Dauntless here recently, and Sea of Thieves. And throw in a few other games as well.
Okay. So Damon came down to visit some family and decided to come down.
Father's Day weekend, so I hope you visit your dad.
Yes. Of course, this airs after Father's Day, but hope you did visit your dad. But as we were talking and catching up, he mentioned that because you can't have a conversation with me without Tokusatsu showing up at some point, we discussed that you had not seen Shin Godzilla and really wanted to.
Yeah, shame.
So,
Depression.
As it turns out, now normally we do a synopsis on the show, a very brief one, but we've covered this movie at least once or twice at this point on this channel, so if you need a synopsis, 1, that's what Wikipedia is for. 2, go back and watch one of the other Shin Godzilla episodes. We're just going to chat about it.
Yeah.
Now, as I lean out of frame horribly, one thing we do on Denzicaster, though, and since this is your first time on the show, we've got to ask. Damon was also with me back in the days of Maverick's anime reviews, so he knows he knows some of the things where we have traditions that we have to do. Don't worry, Dragon Ball: The Magic Begins is not on the list.
What was the one I subjected you to? I can't even remember what it was called.
Oh Lord, I don't remember either. I just remember
that bad. They
wholesale stole music from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and Star Wars, though, in the same anime. It was tremendous. But it was horrid. But that notwithstanding, one of the things we always talk about is what was your first experience or anything that you remember with Tokusatsu? So Japanese monster movies, superheroes, anything of the like.
Godzilla.
So Godzilla.
I grew up with black and white TV until early 80s, and Godzilla was one of the first of those types of things I got to watch.
What was your first Godzilla movie, you remember?
I can't exactly remember, but it was probably the original Godzilla movie, I suspect.
So King of the Monsters, probably?
Probably.
Okay. That's funny because he doesn't watch the show, folks. But my very first Tokusatsu memory was Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla from '74. And very similar. It was on a little TV. Yeah. In my case, it was in a barbershop. But, discussions with you over the years, because we've known each other for over a decade, it's always been interesting to discuss movies with you because we share similar tastes, but from wildly different perspectives.
Yes.
So we both love Pacific Rim, although on different levels. I never knew, literally until today, though I feel ashamed of this, that you like binge watched or tried the entire like Showa era of Godzilla movies, like from Godzilla 54 up until whenever you got sick of the cheesiness. So
until Hulu took it off.
Until Hulu took it off.
I caught it at the end of the Hulu run, so I got to watch like the 10 or 15 of them back to back. I even subjected my kids to it.
Oh Lord,
they bombed out pretty quick on that one.
So today, let's just kind of talk about Shin Godzilla. First things first. First impressions. What did you think of it?
First impressions. Wonderful nod to the original Godzillas.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. It was formulaic in a degree. It's the original. It's slow burn to get to the initial action. Then you got the initial action of, oh God, we can't defeat it, and then the intelligence behind, we can defeat it if we think about it. So in all those regards, it hits the high points. My complaints with it is, overall, I like the stylistic design of Godzilla, but there's some parts I didn't like. And I like the characters a lot more in this. I feel like there was more to them than in the older movies, which were like, oh God, what are we going to do? This one, it seemed like they were actively trying to solve a problem, constantly iterating over it.
Well, they were characters.
Yeah.
Unlike the old movies where they were like set dressing.
They were stereotyped in the original one. It's like, here's you got your scientist here, you got your soldier here, and they acted just like the stereotypes at the time were.
One of the things that we talked about when we were watching the movie, this is about the fourth or fifth time I've seen Shin Godzilla, or Godzilla Resurgence is the other name of the movie. They have a tendency to give Godzilla movies two names these days.
Thank you, America.
Yeah. So it's about the like I said, about the fourth or fifth time I've seen it, and every time I watch it, I catch something new, which to me is always a wonderful thing watching movies. It's like replay value in a video game. I like a lot of the nods, and I didn't necessarily think about the scientist thing until you just mentioned it, because that is very much the original Godzilla movie. You have the how in the world do we stop it, and we have the military isn't going to be enough, and then it's a scientist that saves the day, and in this movie it's very much the same thing. My impressions of it initially going in originally were very scared. Because I had seen the trailer with the atomic fin blast and was like, oh, that's not Godzilla. Godzilla doesn't do that. And almost started thinking to myself, for a split second, when I saw that originally, I was like, can we get the iguana? That was I actually thought that for a second. And Hideaki Anno being part of it, and Hideaki Anno is the director behind Evangelion, of which Damon is a big fan. Don't watch one of our latest episodes of 8-Star Anime that I was on.
Why?
Well,
if you rag it, I'm okay with it.
Well, you already know my opinion. I think it's a wonderful television series for 25 episodes, and then episode 26 they let you know that the whole thing was garbage. So I think actually my old written review that was on Maverick said stop at episode 25 because obviously they ran out of money.
Better yet, just watch the movies and bypass the episodes altogether.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I'll be careful with the later movies, but that's a review for a different time.
Yes. So, I was really scared with Hideaki Anno because I've never seen anything live action that he's been part of ever. I don't know that he's ever been part of anything live action before this. And so I was a little afraid because not every anime director translates easily over to live action, because in anime you have restrictions, or you have no restrictions, whereas in live action there are very heavy restrictions as to what you can do. So I was really scared at first. What were the...
Well, I've forgotten that he was directing it, and I remember that's why the last Eva movie's been delayed. It's because of Godzilla. Thank you. But after watching this movie, I can see his fingerprints all over it. This very much reminds me of the first few episodes of Eva. It reminds me the pacing and stuff, because it's also slow burn through each episode, and then you got all the action at the end, and then some critical point to, oh, we solve it by doing this. So it was a very good fit, and I remember reading that he was going to be directing, and I was thinking that's going to be cool, because Eva is about big monsters.
Right.
So
the editing style too, which I never thought of until this, was very much like Evangelion, in that you would have long exposition or explanation or something, and then you would have almost the music montage of people preparing for something, and then you move on to the next thing, and that was very similar to Evangelion.
Yeah.
And like I said, I believe they even lifted some music straight from Eva for this.
Yes, they did.
Well, because it has the same composer.
Yeah.
So,
but I even, there's one part where I picked it up. It was different, but it had the same beat and tempo behind it, but they had electric guitar on top of it,
Mm-hmm.
which was different. But you probably saw me just giggling for no reason because it was a montage, and I just started giggling when I picked up on that.
Well, and you also started giggling at all the Funimation voice actors that you recognized.
Yes. I watch anime like nobody's business. Chris is probably the only one that watches more than me. Maybe, because I've got BRB, so I'll sit there and binge episodes upon episodes upon episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So. And of course, there's no end to the anime you can watch.
So what did we like? What stood out to you in this movie as stuff that was really good?
Stuff that was really good. The characters, they were actual characters. I felt like they were more developed to a degree. Mm. But being such a huge cast of scientists and stuff, they could only go so far with them. So your main characters were the couple of the politician, the younger guys. Mm-hmm. I couldn't tell you their names for the life of me, but a couple of the younger guys that were playing off of each other, that really you got into their thinking on it.
Okay. Of course, there are no names on the back of this.
Of course, there's no names on the back of it. And then overall, I do like Godzilla's design. Mm-hmm. The red, when I saw the previews, really put me off to it because I was like, I don't feel like that's Godzilla. But seeing the movie, explanations, I give it a pass. There are aspects of his design I didn't like, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Oh. And I like that it wasn't traditional Godzilla movie in that, okay, we're going to shoot it, and all of a sudden every helicopter in the world is suddenly over Japan. You've got millions of helicopters floating in the sky shooting. This one hit a lot more grounded in realism. You can only put so much stuff in the air. And the cost of military equipment is astronomical. I mean, it's a fancy piece for the most part, but I like when they ground stuff in reality, especially when it's present day.
There was a line, watching it this time, there was a line from an old wrestling promoter that jumped in my mind, which was when you have something that is so preposterous, you have to surround it with things that are posterous.
Yes. Otherwise,
it doesn't work. And I started thinking about that as we were watching this movie, more than perhaps any Godzilla movie since the first one. They made it a point. There were no fantastic elements in this movie other than Godzilla himself.
Yes.
I mean, the very concept of the way they stop him is a blood coagulant, which is a real thing. They use tanker trucks, like fire trucks and the like. They use trains and such for different things. I mean, it is very much has that real world feel to it, which I dug. And I agree with one reviewer on YouTube. The trains have their revenge.
Yes.
So, although it hits all the notes for a Godzilla movie to me. First, a lot of people are going to hate on it immediately because there's not enough monster action in it. Well, folks, go watch the first one. There was no monster action in it either.
Here's the first one. Building, crush. Building, crush. Yeah. Things blow up. Building, crush. That's about it.
I mean, Godzilla at its core, it's one of those rare properties, and I've said this recently on 8-Star Anime too, it's one of those properties to me that, like Star Trek and Gundam, when it's done really, really well, it hits some moral tone of some sort. The original Godzilla is a cautionary tale of the atomic bomb. I mean, that's what it is. This one becomes more of a cautionary tale of atomic waste and inaction, because this happens not too far after the disasters that hit Japan with the earthquake and the nuclear meltdown, and the country not being prepared for that type of disaster on that type of scale, and that's what Godzilla is. He's that disaster on that scale, and they're not ready for it. I'm with you. I initially didn't care much for the design. The red didn't bother me, but I think that's because I've seen a Godzilla movie you haven't, with Godzilla vs. Destroya, where he has a reddish tone to him. So that didn't bother me too much. I felt like an Attack on Titan vibe to it, where it looked like part of him was like under the armor was exposed, and that was the red you were seeing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much I cared for that design choice.
If you take it from perspective, and this is how I will be able to explain off anything in a movie that's ridiculous. That's my gift.
Yeah.
That's why I can like bad movies, because I can come up with a reason to justify it. In this case, he's radioactive. His blood's glowing.
Sure.
that's my explanation for it. I'm good with it.
Oh yeah, and it makes perfect sense. I liked a lot of the other design choices for Godzilla. I will say this: I didn't like either of his. I like his second or third forms. You never actually see Form 1 in the movie.
Yeah.
But because Form 1 is entirely underwater. But Forms 2 and 3 I didn't care for. There are plushies of that little ugly salamander thing that people love. But I don't care for either of those. The final design I like. I like the look of the head because it's a throwback to the original. Yeah. I like the jacked up teeth for the same reason. Little things they did in here with the atomic breath. I actually liked the idea that it was a different take on it's warming up. Mm-hmm. Usually you just see, well, I'll use the legendary one as an example. You see the dorsal fins start at the tip of the tail and light up. It's like, oh, we know what's coming.
Yeah.
But here you still get the glowing, but it starts off with just the roar, then it becomes smoke, then fire, then a concentrated beam.
Yeah.
And the more I've seen it, the more I like it. Originally, when I saw it, I was like, why is it a laser? But it's just, once you see it a few times, you become accustomed to it. Dig the characters because they're characters. They don't have the Kenny. They don't have the little kid from some of the older Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
You ever see any of the old Gamera movies?
Yes.
Yeah, have they're worse than those.
Yes.
Did you see those on MST3K or without the benefit of
Both.
hilarious comment? Okay.
Both.
Have you ever seen the 90s Gamera trilogy?
Maybe.
Okay, we'll talk about that later because you would like those. But it has a good cast of characters that you actually can become invested in. That's the biggest thing I enjoyed about it. So, what did we not like?
Well, let's go ahead and circle around to the beam weapon. I did not like the laser beam. I liked everything up to that, but the laser beams. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the beams in general. I like your wife's explanation. It's the disco ball.
Yeah.
As I've seen cartoons and stuff where somebody shoots a laser at the disco and all of a sudden it shoots everybody else. And that's what it felt like. I think they went a little overboard. They wanted to be more powerful, and so now he can breathe lasers, he can shoot them out of his back, and he also can shit lasers. I mean,
well, they come out the tip of the tail.
Yeah, he shits lasers. But I get why they did it. I think they went just a hair too far with that MacGuffin.
Yeah. And I will go ahead and set him up for this. What do you think of the mouth?
I hated the mouth. That was next on the list. I despise. I like the Blade movies. This is where this comes from. I like the Blade movies. Okay.
Okay.
Never seen them. Enjoyed them. They're worth seeing. I think even their vampire movie. I think you'd enjoy it because of was it Denzel?
It's Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes. Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say the wrong name, but it's Wesley Snipes.
Don't worry, I've done that this show too.
I'm terrible with names, but I enjoyed those movies. But at some point, they introduced vampires with the split jaw mechanic, and it's supposed to look fearsome and gross. And to me, it's like if you drink or eat something, it's just going to fall out of your mouth.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. Now with the Godzilla one, he can dislocate his jaw and spread it so the skin is still attached in it. So it's a slightly better mechanic. And I know there are some real creatures that can split their jaws. Snake being one of them. But on something so big, it looks actually kind of stupid.
So
and he doesn't eat, so there's no need for him to do that.
You see, I figured that the rationale behind it was specifically for the atomic beam, that he had to do it for the mouth to be. But then that's why when I first saw it. But then it becomes a concentrated beam. I was like, well, why did you need to do that?
Exactly. It was there for, oh God, it's to be scary. Like I said, it looks stupid to me when I see it.
I don't care overly much for the disco ball dorsal fin lasers either. It's like I think it was just to somehow make him different and more imposing.
I did like everything, like you said, when he starts breathing and his atomic breath is just the air blowing out, and then all of a sudden it turns smoke and then fire. And then I do like that it kind of went to atomic breath, but I almost wish it was more of a bang and you're done. It just kind of concentrated, and all of a sudden he shoots off a real powerful blast.
More like a fireball than a beam.
Or it could have even been a beam, but it'd just be real quick and he's done thing. I think it'd been a lot more. And then you could get almost a rapid fire or something out of it.
Well, I don't like when it got so concentrated it became the laser beam. There's that moment in between fire and beam where it actually looks like the atomic breath.
It's really cool.
I didn't care for the disco ball. The tail oddly didn't bother me as bad, and I don't know why. And it may be because Godzilla over the years has. I mean, is it any dumber than the drop kick? Is it any dumber than Godzilla flying by tucking his tail between his legs and pointing his mouth at the ground?
But better question: is it any better?
Well, no, yeah, it is. But
I don't know.
We got the physics-defying drop kick. We got Godzilla trying to fly. So
okay, here's my thing. There's no orifice at the end of a tail usually.
No, there's not.
And it doesn't. I mean, a snake is the closest comparison I can get here.
Mm.
And even a snake tail orifice is not at the end of the tail.
Right.
So it's a mutation. I get it.
Sure.
Now I'll write it off as it's a mutation. But I still don't know if I buy it.
The biggest thing that got to me, but it's kudos to the movie because until you think about it, it doesn't bother you. But this falls into the don't look too close or you'll see the zippers thing.
Yeah.
There's only so many helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so many trains. There's only so many tanks. And then at the end of the movie, they apparently have an infinite supply of drones. So, now granted, they come from the U.S., so I guess that's part of the thought process. But my thought process behind that, though, was as we were watching and as you were talking about that, I'm like, but you know what? They do such a good job early in the movie of setting up limitations that when you get to that moment, you just buy it. You accept it. So,
and that is, I think, a current mentality just worldwide that the U.S. has infinite number of drones. So a lot of the stuff carries over for U.S. preconceptions. You can tell it when you watch it.
I liked a lot of the mutations they did with Godzilla in the movie. For instance, before he does the fire, you actually see, because this Godzilla has no eyelids, but you see almost like a reptilian or amphibian shield go over the eye to protect his eyes. They show it in like a split second. The disjointing jaw, though, I think was like a step too far. I understand why they're doing it, and I think the real reason they're doing it is because they want this version of Godzilla to be distinctly different. So even though he has the shape and size and general silhouette of Godzilla, they were adding things in there to go, he's not a dinosaur.
Yeah. So
I think they were going that, and like I said, I think they maybe just went a little too far to the left kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I will add, before we get on to our closing thoughts.
Oh, no.
Oh, you have
one more
something
thing.
that you didn't like.
The arms bothered me.
Oh.
This bothered me to no end. This is a special effects mistake. Seriously. When you provide anything animated that's supposed to be animated, there should be no static parts on it. And throughout the movie, when you see the arms, they are like this. And he's doing this. They're not moving. There will be a little bit of movement with the fingers, the hands. I could have handled them being up if the fingers moved, or if they were inactive, they should have been more like a T-Rex. I know they want to separate from dinosaur, but there should have been some movement in the arms from him walking and such. That's just a special effects thing that I don't always notice them, but that one I did pick up, and I picked up a couple of CGs they used on the helicopters, which made me laugh more than anything. But that's design choice. Like I said, mount the arms and disco ball were really the biggest on me.
Now, this is something, before we get to our final thoughts, this is something that actually came up a lot in the Godzilla community. I don't keep up with it too much, but I've seen this one pop up often enough. One of the things that we discussed beforehand, but folks out there may not be aware of, Toho wasn't supposed to make this movie. Part of the licensing agreement between Toho and Legendary is that Toho's not supposed to make a live-action Godzilla movie during the license agreement with Legendary. They can make animated films, but not live-action ones. And Legendary, basically, as I understand it, let Shin Godzilla slide. But a lot of people feel that the end of this movie sets it up for a deliberate sequel.
Yeah.
What did you think of Godzilla's tail that they lingered on at the end of the movie?
It's the spine coming off. They were setting it up toward the end, I noticed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I feel about Godzilla spawning off and you'll get all your other creatures out of it, because they purposely set it up. oh, Godzilla can sprout wings and Godzilla can do this and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you're setting up Godzilla being the father of all monsters or the mother of all monsters on top of everything else.
The one particular one that struck a lot of people, myself included, is if you look at all of them, though, they're all humanoid.
Yeah.
And there's even one that's very clearly humanoid but has dorsal fins like Godzilla. So I don't know that I would want to see a Godzilla movie that went towards having humanoid Godzilla creatures running around. At that point, I don't think you're Godzilla anymore. I think you're trying really hard to be alien.
Yeah. And they could start out small and grow. I mean, maybe
Sure.
they start out humanoid, and being that that's who Godzilla fought, that's why. But there's a disconnect there because it's like, why would he pick that form since he's being defeated, but Godzilla is not intelligent enough, and the interaction with his opponents is not close enough for him to register that humans are the form that beat him. There's just a distinct disconnect. He doesn't eat anybody. And if he ate somebody, I could see it as well. He could have accidentally hit him with his tail, but given that the armor won't let bullets through, I'm sure that the meaty substance didn't get through either.
Right.
So there's a disconnect there. I'll buy it more if the Mothras and Gamorras and all the other stuff spawn off of him.
Yeah, if somehow...
I don't like it, but it's a much better explanation than having a bunch of zombie-esque humanoids running around.
All right. So final thoughts on Shin Godzilla. What do you think?
It is a good Godzilla movie. I like the Legendary one better.
Okay, but I'm curious as to why.
It's a close one on both of them. The Legendary one, I thought the story was a little bit paced a little better. I like the reasoning behind Godzilla in that one a little better.
He's the alpha predator kind of thing.
I like that. I like that. He's got a reason he's eating and stuff. Yeah, he's atomic, but he's the size out of it. So hence why he goes after creatures that are atomic in that general idea. I like the design of that Godzilla bear. There's a lot of stuff I like better about it, but at the same time, I did like this one a lot. This is definitely a 2 or 3, and the only reason it might be a 3 is because I like the original Godzilla.
Okay.
It's a nostalgia thing at that point.
So this is like on your list is probably like in the top 3?
Yeah, definitely see it. This one, I'd have to watch them all together, back to back, to really put them in order, but it's going to be Shin Godzilla 1984, original Godzilla, and legendary Godzilla. Those 4 are my top of the list at the moment.
Very good. That's 4 really good ones.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things I really do enjoy about the movie and that they do a very good job of is you don't have to know what Godzilla is. You could go into this movie and have never heard of Godzilla, and the movie can be understood and taken on that context, which is something I applauded the legendary Godzilla for too. You didn't have to know about Godzilla before the movie starts. With that said, I do believe this is probably the only Godzilla movie since the first one that had such a strong message that came across.
Yeah.
To me, it's not as poignant necessarily as the original, but that's because the original was made by people who had survived the atomic bomb. And it was made 9 years afterwards. This one, yes, is being made by people who have survived this disaster, but we all saw that disaster happen, and we saw the tragedy unfold and how those people coped because of the way media works today. Whereas this was, for a lot of people in 1956, when it came to the U.S. as King of the Monsters, for a lot of people, this was their first look into what did Japan go through on even a metaphorical level through all of that. So, but that's not taking anything away from Shin Godzilla, because it tells its story really well.
Yes.
I don't know that I consider the legendary picture better, because while the legendary picture, I think, does tell an overall more interesting story to me, the legendary movie had 2 characters I gave a damn about. Whereas I cared about almost every person that appeared on screen in Shin Godzilla. The actors, even if they were bit players, they came on and it was played with enough gravitas, each character, that I was interested in them. So if I could take the cast and the characters from Shin Godzilla and take sort of the plot and the shape of the legendary Godzilla and mash them together somehow, then I would have a damn good modern Godzilla movie. I'd have something that's so cool. But
I do like the legendary design a lot better.
So do I. I actually, the design in this movie is nowhere near my favorite Godzilla designs. It's not bad, but it's not great. I don't know if I would put this is it in my top 3. I haven't actually thought about that. The original is probably my favorite, followed by 84, and then Legendary might be in the top 5. Godzilla Mothra King Ghidorah, which I don't think you've ever seen, is probably, so this might be in my top 5. It might be number 5. GMK I love because it's the only movie where King Ghidorah's a good guy. And just the way they treat it. They do, like, in that entire movie, they do a complete role reversal where Godzilla is the most dangerous monster that has ever existed, and King Ghidorah is Japan's last hope.
Yeah.
And it's just really strange to watch. But yeah, this movie is tremendous. If you haven't seen it, go see it. I think myself and Damon agree on that one.
There's something that I was just thinking about.
Sure.
One of my favorite things about 84, we spoke about this, at the end of that movie, Godzilla is just not defeated. He just goes on.
Yes.
They don't know why he came through Tokyo or anything, and he just, the best thing to do is, if you don't have a reason, don't try to explain one off. Midichlorians, anybody? But sorry, I couldn't resist.
Notice how Disney just completely ignored that.
Good thing. But this one, I felt like the people in the room should have been smart enough to put up a theory about it. Nobody even approached it. What is he doing? It's like, oh, he's destroying the city. How we stop him? And that's probably what separates this one from the other movie, from the Legendary one. Is in Legendary, the thought was put behind why, and they had people, even if they came out wrong or whatever, but they approached the problem and said, figure out why is this happening. And that's where this one...
Trying to discover, like, the psychology of Godzilla?
Or just the nature of him. Why is he going through Tokyo? Is he going for a nuclear reactor? I mean, they never kind of said where it was ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the crowd, the biologists and stuff, the biologists and stuff in the group should have been able to speculate, even if they never prove it.
Sure.
It's just something that the question never came up, and therefore they didn't need to answer it. I think it should have came up in context in the movie.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think it's an interesting thing. I think they almost throw it away.
Exactly.
Earlier in the movie when they say, well, he may not even be intelligent, or we may not be able to communicate with him, or something like that. I think they use that as an excuse just to throw that away.
Yeah, and even an animal needs to eat.
They put so much focus on how to stop him and so much energy into it. If they took the time to try to understand what he's doing, does it take away from them the scenes where they're trying to stop him?
I don't think so. It could have been simply do we know why he's doing this, and we don't understand. There's things on his path, and you could have thrown some MacGuffins out there. Hey, there's a nuclear reactor here. There's the volcano here. There's something unusual here. We don't know what he's going to, and they stop him before he ever gets there, and then you introduce something for the second movie to attack.
Okay, well, or...
And it can be throwaway scenes. It's just, it's like to me, they never even approached the topic.
I wonder if those scenes wound up on a cutting room floor.
Probably.
Would it have been better in your head then, even if they had said, well, why is he doing this? And then have someone say, we'll have time to answer that after we stop him.
That'd been fine.
Okay.
It's like I said, when you're attacking a problem, one of the things you want to do is, why is it happening?
Why is it a problem?
Yeah, that's a very simple thing that scientists, I'm not a scientist, but I suspect that when they look at something, why is this happening?
Right.
If we can figure out why it's happened, then we have a better chance of stopping it.
Right. No, I agree with it. I haven't actually necessarily thought about that when watching the movie.
Yeah.
But that's a damn good point.
Yeah.
And then I had one other question, folks, and it went off. So
we can talk around the room a little bit more.
But so yeah, I think the why is a good point. overarching thing in the movie to me, the last thing we always ask here on the show is, or one of the last things we ask is, would you consider this Tokusatsu 101? If someone had never seen a Tokusatsu production of any kind, would this be one of the movies you would hand to them and go, watch this. This is what we do?
That is a little bit harder for me. I've seen a lot of the Godzilla stuff, but I don't know if I'm seeing as much of everything else. Like I say, it hits all the high points of a Godzilla movie, but I'm worried it's too slow for the majority of audiences that are not exposed to that format.
Okay.
Like I say, I love that. I love Slow Bowl. I like Brazil. I like Clockwork Orange. I like these movies that take a long time to get to the point. I enjoy that stuff. But with this one, I think it's, for the modern novice, I think it's going to be too slow for them to get into it. It would be a great second or third movie to me after you've been introduced.
You see, I put the original 54 Godzilla as Toku 101.
Yeah.
I say, no, this is one of the seminal works of Tokusatsu, and I think this is one of the things you watch first.
See, my daughter watched it and she got bored with it. It was too slow for her.
Okay.
So it's, and that, like I said, it's just looking at modern audience. If I'll sit down my daughter, this one might not. 1984 might be a better one to get her into it.
Yeah, I can see that. Because the 84 one, it still has a lot of the slow burn to it, but it's not as slow.
You got a lot more things getting destroyed quicker in that one.
Right.
So
they kind of get to the point.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting to the point, so we actually have a rating system on this show that I tried to dodge and avoid tooth and nail for a very long time, but all the other review shows here on our channel do that, so we do it now too. Our scale is very simple. It's 3 parts. Nope. Not bad, maybe, or hell yes.
Okay.
What is this one? Mine's simple. I haven't done the rating yet on one of these episodes, but mine would be hell yes. It's that good a movie.
I don't like the middle one. I have to go with the higher one because it feels closer to the higher one. So, oh yeah, yes.
So okay, so yours would not be like, yep. It would be like in the middle between the two.
Yeah, it'd be like good. I'm gonna go buy it. I'm gonna take it home and I'm gonna enjoy it a few more times. But it won't be one of those I drop in as often as I do something like Shawshank Redemption. Which,
right, that's a hell of a comparison.
Well, just for good movies, that one I will sit down out of the blue and just watch. And that to me is a hell yes. When I'm sitting there, I don't know what to watch. Let me grab Shawshank, drop it in. I can sit there and watch it, and it hits all the high points.
It's about like Patton with me. I can watch Patton at any time.
So that's my measure. If it makes me worry, if I can't find anything else, I can guarantee to watch that. Whereas if I want to fall asleep, I put in Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, and that puts me to sleep like that.
Wow,
it's not a bad movie.
No,
I fall asleep every time for some reason.
Record of Lotus 4.
That's
the one. That's the OVA. That's the one that you go to sleep to. The accursed island of.
Speaking of which, have you seen the Record of Brain Crest War?
The what?
It's another anime called the Record of Brain Crest War. It's actually pretty good.
Sorry,
it's distracting.
No, it's fine. Is it on any streaming service?
It's on VRV. I know.
Okay. I'll look for it.
Yeah.
So, folks, thank you so very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. If you'd like to help us out here at Geek Carolina, you can do that in one of 2 places: cafepress.com/Geek Carolina and redbubble.com/people/Geek Carolina. For strange and bizarre reasons, you will occasionally see different things in the different stores, but you can pick up any of our merchandise there, and it does go to help us out here at the channel. We have need of a new tripod mount because, well, Damon thought it was terribly funny that I was attaching the camera to the tripod with rubber bands. So we could use that. We're looking at some new lighting possibilities and lots of other stuff. So please do go help us out. None of that money lines any of our pockets. We do this for fun. I told him he was getting paid. But
what?
But no, seriously. But it will help us out. We do greatly appreciate it. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. But either way,
reason why, please.
Yes, either way, tell us why. Leave us some comments down in the comment section below. We love feedback. And of course, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because that really does help us out.
And if people ask, I will come back on occasion.
Oh yeah, because we've talked about you coming back for some of the other shows. I know Chris is going to look at this and go, why isn't he on 8-star? Chris is going to be so jealous that you're here first.
As I was saying.
Yes.
But if you you're interested, let me know. What I'll do is I'll jump on my computer. I've got a full setup. As I said, I stream. If you want to help me out, go over to Twitch TV / Damon Wayland. I'll see if Mike will put a link in there for us.
We will.
And just go subscribe to me and say, hey, that helps me out. I'm not looking to make money. I have a day job that pays way more. But
we both do.
I enjoy doing this as well. And I'd love to start hooking up with Mike, Chris, the rest of the gang again. It's been 2.5 years since I moved, so I missed everybody. I don't get to play as much. I don't get to hook up with them. I don't know if they ever talked about coming over to my house and playing.
You know, I have not thought about it, but I am certainly not opposed to randomly showing up one week if I have some vacation time coming up to your neck of the woods. We're not going to say where, folks, just for
it's Tennessee.
It's in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But coming up to your neck of the woods, I've got family up there, and hanging out for a little while. That might be pretty cool. So, folks, check him out, twitch.tv/Damon Wayland. There'll be something in the notes down below so you can find him. And hope you join us next time for some more Electric City Sentai Denzicaster. We'll see you next week.